B.
I have a game on my playlist that fits a similar category in that it is it's an incredible story, an incredible game. Already one of my favorite games I've played this year. This is a game that has been out in early access for 5 years. That just came out into full 1.0 release this last week. It's called Knock on the Coffin Lid. This is from a studio called Red Boon that, according to the press release, I got a code for this game. I did not play it in any of its iterations of early access. It wasn't on my radar. I don't know how it wasn't on my radar. This game was made for me, and it won awards back in 2020 when it first came out. It was winning awards like indie game awards. This is a studio that has no publisher. According to the press release that I was given with the code, had no publisher and no investors. And they made this game that I'm telling you stands shoulder to shoulder with anything you want to. You want to put Hades up against this? I think it compares pretty well. It is a spectacular.
Save those comparisons for social media, Jeff, not on the show. Come on.
I know. I'm not allowed to compare things. I forgot. I'm just saying from a level of polish standpoint, the visuals are absolutely stunning. The art in this game is incredible. This is, as I said, very much my catnip. This is a card deck building roguelite that has a huge emphasis on story. Awesome. The concept of Knock on the Coffin Lid is that you are one of these 3 awesome heroes in this fantasy world, very kind of dark fantasy, more along the lines of the world from The Witcher than maybe, Lord of the Rings. It's much more sort of horror fantasy almost, but not super horror-y. But it's that kind of dark, like things are a little scarier. And you all get murdered. And then this dude, like years later, comes and knocks on the coffin door and wakes, resurrects one of you. You get to eventually we'll get to pick between you'll unlock all 3 of these characters that play very differently from one another. And ostensibly this is Slay the Spire with a very intricate story. The cool thing about this is that the first character you unlock kind of remembers the least about what his life was and why they were killed and how it all went down. And the subsequent characters like remember more about it, but either way, it's woven into the roguelite mechanic by the fact that every time you die in the game, you come back and he's like, well, that's not how I remember it. Let's try it again. And the whole time you're like, it's the character sort of in dialogue, like spoken, voice acted excellently, I might add, dialogue with this Mortis character and kind of explaining how it all went. And I remember this and I remember that. And it's got that Slay the Spire flowchart thing. A lot of roguelites have that where you're going from node to node and you pick your trajectory through the flowchart and you go, oh, well, if I do this branching pathway, I can get to a merchant and I want to do one. That'll let me rest and get my healing back. And that's going to be a big fight. And that, you're in the same way that Slay the Spire does, and a lot of games do, you're picking your way through the that flow chart. But with Knock on the Coffin Lid, that flow chart is tied to an actual map of this fictional world. So the nodes are specific to those locations. And so if you go and there's tons of them on each map that you unlock, and there's multiple maps. And so as you're making different decisions in these, branching, forked pathways, you're actually encountering different story beats that are tied to that actual location. And so in this story that it's telling, the guy will be like, oh, I don't remember if I went east and fought the elves or if I stayed west and, had to deal with the giants. And like, that's what will happen is that it's based on the regionality that you're actually exploring. It's not totally random. And the The events that you encounter are so interesting. The art is phenomenal. The writing is excellent. You're, in the way a lot of these games are, you'll go and in one node will be a fight, one node will be a merchant or something to do, one node will be this sort of mystery node where it could be, you encounter somebody in a cage. Do you set them free? And then you go, yeah, I set them free. And it's like, oh, they attack you, or you don't know necessarily if it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing, right? So there's tons of those, but it's all sort of deeply embedded in the tapestry of this world. So what's cool about that is that because it's a roguelite and you're going to be doing this over and over, you can sort of decide to make different excursions through the map and discover different things in these different nodes. And so it really makes the replayability feel much more in your control. It's not just like, oh, what's the random room that I'm going to get this time when I go from left to right? It's more like, oh, I'm making a choice to try to do something different, or I'm going to try to swing through and do the same thing and like maximize. Oh, and there may be some randomization of the specifics of what happens, but I just find it to be a really cool tweak on that formula. And again, embedded in what is just some of the best looking art and great storytelling that I've seen in a game like this. And the combat is great. It's all card-based, deck-based, turn-based. You know what the enemy is going to do on your turn. So the enemies have tells. They'll tell you what their next thing is going to be, which I love. Slay the Spire has that too, where you're like, okay, I can plan my strategy because I have full knowledge of what the bad guy is going to do. I can try to, load up on my block or my defense or my armor in order to try to block this attack that's coming in, or I can try to kill this guy before they're even able to do their attack. All that juicy info that informs my decision-making process. And it's got layers of mechanics that are just surpass the simple, this card is awesome. There's a lot of this card is awesome, and you acquire new cards. There's no real leveling. You're leveling by improving your cards. You get better cards as you go deeper into the flow chart. And you can level up cards too. When you rest, you can have a chance to level up cards and make them better. And you get items as well. So you can have a head item, an armor item, and weapons, shield and a sword, or two-handed items. And those will potentially put cards into your deck as well that give you cool abilities. You also have talent and magic that you can use, all of it expressed in cards. But I find that there's tons of status effects that the enemies will do that you can put on them, you can put on yourself. The depth of the card-based combat is really cool. Really impressive. I am hooked on this game. I absolutely love it. It's one of those ones where I'm just like trying to steal away 15 minutes to just go down and put in a couple of rounds on Knock on the Coffin Lid. Knock on the Coffin Lid is what it's called. I just love this game. I think this is a complete home run. It's like $25 on Steam right now.
It's on sale. I've got it on my wish list already, and maybe we'll be adding it to my cart by the end of our call.
Absolutely love this game. I just think it is a total gem. I was not aware of it at all. It's been in early access, like I said, for 5 years. First game from this studio. And again, the studio doesn't have a publisher and evidently didn't have investors. It's just like total labor of love.
Wow.
What they were able to accomplish from a level of polish, a level of fidelity, just the look and feel of this game. The voice acting is excellent. Everything about it. I'm just super impressed with Knock on the Coffin Lid.
Have you Steam Decked it or only
it's funny?
Computered it?
I've only big computered it so far, and I really wanted to talk about the Steam Deck compatibility because Steam Deck has not enough information yet, which is what it tells me when I load it. Yeah. And I have my Steam Deck behind me. I was planning to do it before we started recording, and it died. The power. I'm just charging right now. So
yeah. It seems perfect for the deck if it works.
Yeah.
If you want to play now for a while, I'll just watch you play it.
Hey, don't tempt me. This is one of those games where I'm like, I love that feeling of thinking about a game when I'm not playing it, and all I want to do is just sneak away and play a few more minutes of that one game. Man, that's how I feel about this one. And it comes around not often enough, but when I get that feeling on a game, oof, knock on the coffin lid, hitting all cylinders for me. I'm just really loving it. And, lots of replayability, lots of really cool stuff to discover. I feel powerful. I love the upgrades. I love the strategy. It feels challenging in really cool ways. Awesome game.